The day I buried my father, I came home to find every piece of my life scattered across the front lawn, like someone had dragged it out of the house and dropped it wherever it landed. Clothes, books, toolboxes, the framed photo of my dad and me at my college graduation, all of it just sitting there in the grass. My name is Howard Calloway. I'm 65 years old. I stood at the end of that driveway in my funeral suit, luggage in my hand, and I looked at 35 years of marriage spread out in front of me like a yard sale nobody wanted, and all I said was, okay. Then I drove to the house she never knew I owned, but none of that happened overnight. This story goes back 6 years, and it starts with a text message I was never supposed to see. I spent 35 years as a senior civil engineer in Indianapolis. Bridges, drainage systems, public infrastructure. The kind of work where if you cut corners, people get hurt. I took that seriously. I met Loretta in 1988 at a hospital fundraiser. She was a surgical resident, sharp and focused. The kind of woman who walked into a room and you just knew she was going somewhere. I was 28 and I never stood a chance. We married in 1990. The early years were good. We were both grinding. She was building her medical career. I was moving up in my firm and we raised 2 kids in a house we were proud of. Then around year 12, Loretta said she wanted to open her own orthopedic clinic. Private practice, full control. I supported it without hesitation. When a federal infrastructure project came through my firm, the kind of contract that comes once in a career, I turned it down. She needed me in Indianapolis. The kids were still in school. I told myself it was the right call, and I believed it. By the time I hit 59, she had convinced me to retire early. You've put in your time, Howard. Let me carry us for a while. You've earned this. So I walked away from 35 years of engineering and became the man who managed the house, picked up the grandkids, handled whatever needed handling. I thought we were partners. I had no idea that while I was doing all of that, she had already decided I was done. The cracks showed up on a Tuesday morning. Loretta had left her phone on the kitchen counter when she ran back upstairs to grab her badge. The screen lit up while I was pouring coffee. I was not looking for anything. I just saw it. Last night was the best. Miss you already. See, she came back downstairs, scooped up the phone, kissed the top of my head, and said she'd be late. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time after she left. I did not cry. I did not get angry. Something just shifted inside me, like a gear finally catching after spinning loose for years. I called Dennis Pratt that afternoon. We had worked together for 15 years before I retired. Solid guy, straight shooter. I had not called him in almost a year because Loretta had gradually made it clear she found him negative. I had believed her. I believed a lot of things back then. Howard. He picked up on the second ring. You okay? No, I said. I think Loretta is cheating, and I think it might be more than that. Silence. Then. I have been waiting a long time for this call. Come meet me. Not near your house. We sat at a diner on the east side, nowhere either of us usually went. I told him about the text. He listened, and when I was done, he leaned forward and said, before you do anything, you need to understand what you're actually dealing with. You gave up your income, your professional network, your independence. You need to know where the money has been going. He was right. I just did not know yet how much he was right. That night, I went through the file cabinet in the home office while Loretta slept. I photographed documents with my phone and uploaded everything to an email account I created that afternoon at the library. Tax returns, bank statements, the LLC paperwork for her clinic. What I found hit me harder than the text message had. The clinic was registered solely in Loretta's name under a separate LLC. She had been paying herself a salary and routing additional revenue into accounts I had no access to. There was a second LLC attached to a commercial property on the north side of the city. I had never heard of it. I had never signed anything connected to it. I needed real help, and I needed to be careful about how I got it. My neighbor Earl Covington had been retired for 7 years, former attorney, family law. He had gone through a brutal divorce in his early 60s and rebuilt from scratch. We had talked over the back fence dozens of times, but never about anything like this. One Saturday morning, I walked over and laid it all out for him. He did not flinch. He poured 2 cups of coffee, sat down across from me at his kitchen table, and said, "First thing, you're not making any moves yet. You're learning. Second thing, you need your own bank account at a completely different institution, not one she has ever heard of. Third, you need a private investigator before you need an attorney, because you need to know what you're walking into before anyone starts filing anything." He gave me names. He had kept contacts over the years. He said he wished someone had handed him a list like that when it was his turn. I hired Beverly Ashmore within the week. Former insurance fraud investigator, now private. She was methodical and she did not waste words. I hired Sylvia Drummond as my attorney 2 weeks after that. Sylvia looked at my first set of documents and said, "She is going to argue you contributed nothing financially. We are going to prove that is false, and we are going to prove it with paper. I told her I was just getting started on the paper. Over the next 5 years, I built a case the way I used to build structural plans. Nothing rushed, nothing sloppy. Every piece of evidence documented, photographed, uploaded, and filed in an encrypted folder only I could access. Beverly started with the financial trail. Within 6 weeks, she had mapped out 3 separate LLCs connected to Loretta, only one of which I had known about. The Clinic LLC was the most visible. The second was tied to a commercial property on the north side of Indianapolis. The third was newer, registered 2 years prior, connected to a second property in Carmel. All of it funded by income generated during our marriage, none of it disclosed to me. Earl sat with me every Thursday afternoon at his kitchen table. He had a whiteboard in his study where we tracked everything. He was the one who explained the difference between what I suspected and what I could prove, and he pushed me hard on that line every single week. Suspicion gets you nowhere in a courtroom, he said one afternoon. Paper gets you everywhere. He loaned me books on asset protection and divorce law. He walked me through what a forensic accountant actually does and why I needed one before any attorney showed up at a filing window. He had learned all of this the hard way. I was learning it with a guide, which made all the difference. I also opened my own LLC quietly, registered through a PO box, and started picking up freelance engineering consulting work. Small firms, project by project contracts, payment by check to my own account at a credit union across town. It was not much at first, a few $100s a month. But within 2 years, I was pulling in $1,800 to $2,400 a month. And more importantly, I had documented proof that I could support myself. Loretta thought I spent my Tuesdays and Thursdays doing volunteer work for the city planning office. She never asked to see anything. She had already stopped paying close attention to what I did. Beverly was the one who found the USB drive in a manner of speaking. She told me what to look for and where people typically stored things they did not want found. One afternoon, while Loretta was at the clinic and both kids were elsewhere, I went through the home office carefully. The drive was in the back of a locked box Loretta kept beneath a stack of old continuing education folders. I had a copy of the key because I had once needed to store our passports. I copied the drive contents onto my laptop, put everything back exactly as it was, and sent the files to Beverly that evening. What was on that drive changed the shape of everything. The files were 2 years old. There were spreadsheets detailing asset transfers, a draft timeline for moving a commercial property into Gloria Fairbanks' name, and a set of notes that read like a planning document. Loretta had mapped out how to end the marriage in a way that left me with as little as possible. She had been working on it for 2 years before I found that drive. She had a preferred window of time. She had thought through what I could and could not prove. She had underestimated one thing, which was that I had been doing the same kind of planning she had, just longer and more carefully. Gloria Fairbanks was Loretta's mother, 88 years old, still sharp, and the person who had managed the clinic's billing accounts for 20 years. Beverly had flagged the billing patterns early. Procedures coded at higher complexity levels than what was actually performed. Services billed to insurance that did not match operative notes. Medicare reimbursement claims tied to procedures with no corresponding documentation. Gloria had not stumbled into this. She had built it. The emails between her and Loretta went back 11 years. They were detailed and deliberate. Beverly brought in Leonard Hargrove, a forensic accountant who specialized in insurance fraud cases, and Leonard confirmed what Beverly had found. The number he came back with was $4.1 million over $18 years. Those were real patients. Real people whose premiums went up, whose coverage got flagged, who hit lifetime limits early because of procedures that were billed but never performed the way they were described. I sat with that information for 2 weeks before I told Sylvia. When I did, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Howard, this is not just a divorce case anymore. What you're describing is federal. Medicare fraud, insurance fraud, potentially RICO-level coordination between Loretta and her mother. I need you to understand that if we report this, it will destroy her career, her license, and likely her freedom. And it will make the divorce proceedings significantly more complicated before they get simpler. So I'm asking you directly, do you want to win the divorce or do you want justice?" I thought about those patients. I thought about my father who had trusted doctors his entire life and assumed they were straight with him. I thought about 35 years of being told I had not contributed, that I had just been along for the ride, that whatever we had built was hers because she had earned it. "Both," I said. "File everything. If you're out there watching this and you have been told that what you gave to a marriage does not count because it was not a paycheck, stay with me, because what happens next is the part they never see coming." Sylvia scheduled the emergency hearing for a Friday. Beverly finalized her report. Leonard Hargrove certified his findings. and I went to the hardware store, came home, and fixed the broken hinge on the back gate that I had been meaning to repair for 2 years, because that is the kind of man I am. I finish what I start. The call came on a Wednesday morning in March. I was in the garage reorganizing my tool cabinet when my phone rang. A nurse from the hospice facility in Terre Haute. My father, Roy Calloway, 91 years old, had taken a turn. She said I should come soon. I was on I-70 within the hour. I called Loretta from the road. She answered on the third ring. "How long do you think you will be gone?" she said. "Dad is dying, Loretta." "I know, and I'm sorry. It is just that we have the dinner Friday with Clifford and the investment group. He already confirmed the reservation." I pulled onto the shoulder of the highway and sat there with the engine running. Clifford. The name from the text message 6 years ago. It had never gone away. I had just waited. "I will be back when I'm back," I said, and I ended the call. I spent 11 days in Terre Haute. My father had always been a plain-spoken man, a carpenter who built things with his hands and never asked for credit. In one of his last clear stretches, he looked at me from the hospital bed and said, "Howard, I know things have not been right at home for a long time. I can see it on you every time you visit. Whatever you're dealing with, do not let anybody tell you that you built nothing. I know what you gave up. I know what you put in. Do not let them take that from you." He died 3 days later, just before sunrise. I held his hand the whole time. I arranged everything that needed arranging, stayed through the burial, and then booked a flight home one day earlier than I had told Loretta. I did not send her a message. I just came home. The cab dropped me at the end of our driveway at 2:30 in the afternoon. It was a clear April day. The magnolias along the front walk were in full bloom, and spread across the lawn from the front steps out toward the sidewalk was everything I owned. Clothes draped over the bushes, my toolboxes sitting open in the grass, books stacked in piles that had already started to lean. The framed photo of my father and me at my engineering school graduation lying face up on the lawn with a crack across the glass. My fishing gear, my grandfather's pocket watch in a small velvet box, sitting on top of a pile of winter coats, like it meant nothing at all. I stood there for a moment. Then I walked to the front door and knocked. Loretta opened it. Behind her, standing in my kitchen holding a cup of coffee, was Clifford Oakes, 8 years old, the investment partner she had brought into the clinic 5 years ago. He was wearing my cardigan, the gray one I had been looking for since November. Loretta's mother, Gloria Fairbanks, was seated at the dining table with a cup of tea, watching everything with the calm expression of someone who had known this moment was coming for a long time. "You're back early," Loretta said. "My father died." I said, "I know I'm sorry, Howard, but this conversation was coming regardless. The paperwork is inside. Gerald has already filed. You will get your copy by end of week." She paused. "The post-nuptial agreement covers the terms. You get $60,000 and your personal belongings. Gerald's office will walk you through the details." She said it the way you would read a grocery list out loud. I looked at Clifford. He had the decency to look at the floor. I looked at Gloria, who did not look away. I looked at Loretta, the woman I had turned down a federal contract for, the woman I had spent 35 years next to, the woman who had spent the last 2 of those years planning this exact afternoon. "Okay," I said, "I will get my things." I spent 40 minutes on that lawn. I was deliberate about it. I gathered what mattered, my father's pocket watch, the photo, cracked frame and all, my engineering licenses and certifications, my grandfather's Bible, important documents I had already made copies of months ago. I packed 3 suitcases and called a rideshare. The driver was a young woman named Patricia Holt, studying nursing at the community college. She pulled up, took one look at the lawn, and did not say a word until we were 2 blocks away. Then she said quietly, "Are you going to be okay?" "Not yet," I said, "but I will be." She drove me 22 miles south to Greenwood. When we pulled up to the house on Birchwood Lane, she looked at it through the windshield. Small craftsman, yellow porch light on garden coming up along the front walk. "Is this yours?" she said. "Yes," I said. And that one word felt like the first honest thing I had said out loud in years. Actually mine, nobody else's name on it, nobody else's permission required. I gave her a $40 tip and my phone number. "When you finish nursing school," I said, "call me. I know people who can help you find work." I carried my bags inside, set them down in the front hallway, and stood in the quiet for a long time. No one to answer to. No performance to maintain. Just my house, my furniture, my life that I had been building in the background while she was planning her exit. Then I called Sylvia. "I am home," I said. "My real home, tomorrow morning, whatever time you need me, 9 a.m., she said. "And Howard, do not answer any calls from Loretta or Gerald Whitfield tonight. Not one." I made a cup of coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and went through my evidence files one more time until midnight, not because I was nervous, because I wanted to know every number cold before I walked into that courtroom. Sylvia's office was on the 14th floor of a building downtown, all glass and quiet carpet, and the kind of serious that comes from people who spend their days untangling other people's worst years. She had Leonard Hargrove and Beverly Ashmore already seated when I arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. Leonard opened his laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet. Based on everything Beverly documented and the records you collected, here's what we are looking at. He said primary residence valued at $1.1 million. Clinic LLC, including equipment and accounts receivable, $2.3 million. Commercial property Northside, $2.8 million. Carmel property under the Third LLC, $3.1 million. Investment and retirement accounts, $4.2 million. Offshore transfers Beverly traced to an account in the Cayman Islands, $1.9 million. Total documented marital assets, $15.40 million. He looked up. Loretta disclosed $1.4 million in her filing. The number sat in the room for a moment. The postnuptial agreement, Sylvia said, sliding a folder across the table. Leonard ran the metadata. The document was created 14 months ago, not 12 years ago as it claims, and 3 independent handwriting analysts have confirmed your signature is a forgery. All 3 are prepared to testify. Beverly added the final piece. Nadine Colwell, a nurse Loretta had let go without cause 2 years earlier, had reached out voluntarily after hearing through a former colleague that an investigation might be underway. She had kept printed records, billing codes she had entered that did not match the procedures she had assisted with. She had kept them in a folder at home because something had not felt right, and she had not known what else to do. Leonard cross-referenced her records with the insurance claims. The total confirmed fraudulent billing came to $4.1 million across 18 years. Sylvia looked at me. Howard, the fraud changes things. If we report it to federal authorities, and I believe we are obligated to, Loretta faces criminal prosecution. Her medical license will be revoked. Gloria faces charges as the billing manager. This will not be a clean divorce. It will be long, public, and complicated. But your legal position will be substantially stronger because you came forward. Report everything, I said. All of it. The emergency hearing was set for Friday morning. I wore a plain dark suit I had bought for client meetings back when I was still consulting. Nothing expensive, just clean and professional, which is how I was raised. Loretta arrived with Gerald Whitfield, her attorney. Expensive suit, practiced smile, the body language of a man who had never once considered losing. He stopped smiling about 4 minutes into the hearing. Judge Dorothy Langford had a reputation for not letting theatrics substitute for facts. She had reviewed the preliminary filings before either side spoke, which I had been told was unusual and not a good sign for the party with things to hide. Mr. Whitfield, she said, your client disclosed $1.4 million in marital assets. Mrs. Calloway's forensic accountant has documented $15.4 million. I would like you to explain that gap before we go any further. Whitfield talked about pending verification and the complexity of business valuations. Judge Langford let him finish and then moved directly past it. The postnuptial agreement submitted by your client has been flagged as a forgery by 3 independent analysts. Metadata confirms the document was created 14 months ago, not 12 years ago as claimed. Mr. Calloway, did you sign this agreement? No, Your Honor, I said. I have never seen that document before this filing. Loretta stared at the table. I am issuing an immediate freeze on all accounts and assets connected to either party, Judge Langford said. A special master will be appointed to conduct a full forensic review of all marital property. Mr. Calloway is awarded temporary spousal support of $7,500 per month effective today. Dr. Calloway is barred from transferring, selling, or encumbering any asset until this court lifts that restriction. We are adjourned pending the special master's report. As we walked out, I heard Whitfield say quietly to Loretta, "How did he get all of that?" She did not answer him. The federal investigation moved fast once Beverly's report went in alongside Nadine's records. Search warrants were executed at the clinic and at the family home I no longer lived in. News vans showed up outside the clinic on a Tuesday. The headline in the Indianapolis Star 2 days later read, "Prominent orthopedic surgeon and clinic billing manager face federal fraud charges." Loretta called me 9 times over the following week. I did not answer. Her voicemails moved from controlled to desperate in a way that would have been hard to listen to if I had not already spent 6 years watching her plan to discard me. Stanley drove in from Columbus the weekend after the hearing. My son, 36 years old, showed up at my door in Greenwood with a case of beer and 2 sandwiches from the deli near his old apartment. He sat across from me at the kitchen table and said, "Dad, I need to apologize. I watched things get worse for years and I told myself it was not my place. Seeing your stuff on the lawn when I drove by that day, He stopped, started again. I should have said something a long time ago. You're here now, I said. That is enough. Judith took longer. She called me 3 weeks after the hearing, late on a Sunday evening. Her voice was careful, like she was picking her way across unfamiliar ground. Dad, I think I have been wrong about a lot of things. Can we talk? We talked for 2 hours. She told me she had gone by the house and seen Clifford's car in the driveway. She had asked Loretta about it directly, and Loretta had lied to her face without hesitating. That was the moment, Judith said. When she lied to me like it was nothing, I finally understood what you must have been living with. I did not say anything about the years she had not called. Some things do not need to be said out loud to be understood. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday morning. Judge Langford presided, and she did not waste words. The final settlement awarded me 62% of documented marital assets, $9.5 million. Loretta paid every cent of my legal fees. Gerald Whitfield had already withdrawn from the case 2 weeks earlier, after it became clear he had helped prepare the forged postnuptial agreement. His license to practice law was under review before the ink dried on my settlement. Loretta entered a guilty plea on 31 federal counts 2 months after the divorce closed, 7 years federal prison. Gloria Fairbanks, 88 years old and still sharp enough to have known exactly what she was doing for 18 years, received 3 years of house arrest and joint restitution responsibility. The clinic was shuttered. Every commercial property connected to the fraud was seized or liquidated. Before the sentencing, Judge Langford asked if I wanted to make a statement. I had written one out the night before, then crossed most of it out. I stood at the podium with half a page of notes and said, "What actually mattered? Your Honor, I spent 35 years building something alongside this woman. I turned down the best professional opportunity of my career to stay here and support her. I managed a household, raised children, and kept everything running while she built a practice I helped make possible. When she decided she was done with me, she did not say so. She spent 2 years planning to leave me with $60,000 and a pile of my belongings on the front lawn. What she did not plan for was that I had spent 6 years making sure that when the moment came, I would be ready. I'm not angry anymore. I just wanted the truth on the record." The courtroom was quiet when I sat down. Stanley was in the 3rd row. He nodded once. That was enough. Judith called that evening. "Dad, I am proud of you." 3 words I had not heard from her in a long time. We talked for an hour. She told me she was making changes in her own life, asking harder questions, paying attention to things she had been letting slide. I did not give her advice. I just listened. Sometimes that is the better thing. I started the Roy Calloway Foundation 4 months after the settlement closed, named it after my father, who built everything he had with his hands and never once asked to be recognized for it. The foundation offers financial literacy workshops, legal referrals, and documentation guidance for people navigating financial abuse in marriage. Men and women both, though I will be honest, most of the people who show up in the first session look a lot like I did 7 years ago. Distant person, long marriage, no idea how much had been hidden from them. Earl volunteers every Thursday, same as always. Dennis handles outreach and runs our social media, which he claims to hate but is actually very good at. Nadine Caldwell joined the advisory board. She said she kept those billing records because she needed to do something right after spending years doing something wrong. I told her that counted for a great deal. We have helped 63 people so far. Some of them leave bad situations. Some of them just learn to protect themselves going forward. All of them leave knowing they are not invisible, whatever someone else tried to make them believe. I'm sitting on the back porch in Greenwood right now. The garden is coming in well. Leo is visiting this weekend, and he already asked me last time if we could build a birdhouse together. We are going to build 2. People ask me whether I regret the 35 years. Here's what I tell them. I do not think of them as wasted. I think of them as the foundation I was building without knowing it. Every skill I had from 35 years of engineering, how to document, how to read a plan, how to stay patient when the pressure is on, that is exactly what I used to get here. She thought being quiet meant I was not paying attention. She thought staying calm meant I had nothing left. She thought I had nothing. She was dead wrong. If you're watching this and you're somewhere in the middle of what I just described, maybe you're 55, maybe you're 62, maybe you retired early because someone convinced you it was the right move and now you're not so sure. Maybe you have been told that what you contributed does not count because it did not come with a paycheck. I want you to hear this from someone who was standing on a lawn in a funeral suit with 3 suitcases and a plan nobody saw coming. You're not too old. You're not too far gone. The years you put in are not lost. Document what you know. Find one person you trust. Take one small step. That is how it starts. Every man who has ever been underestimated and came back stronger started exactly where you're standing right now. The rest of us are already on the other side, and we are waiting to help you get here.